Good morning, respected Dean Faculty of Law, Professor M.S. Benjamin, Chairman, Department of Studies in Law, University of Mysore. Distinguished speakers, esteemed participants from across the globe. Yesterday's deliberation offered us a deep insight to transformative role of education. Today, it is my privilege to welcome you to the second day of 2 days International Conference on the Role of Educational Institution as Catalyst addressing poverty and mitigating conflict in fragile states. To begin, today we continue with the dialogue with another series of enriching presentation. So our first presentation in this morning is on the theme, the digital fundamental rights and education in fragile states, catalyzing inclusion and peace building by Mr. Manuel and Dr. Hamilton. Sir, over to you, please proceed. Dr. Hamilton, yes.
It's okay?
Yes.
Now okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon. Depends the location, each other. First of all, I'd like to express a big thank you to the opportunity to participate with this event. It's not my first time in an event promoted by University of Mysore. I'd like to extend my hello, my greetings to Syed Kodich Hashmi, to Professor M.S. Shresh, and all the organizers that is doing a beautiful event and an important opportunity to discuss some ideas about education, the importance of the education to the world. In this way, I'd like to express some ideas about human capital development and fundamental rights, and the importance to discuss about the paper of state in the state and the reflections about the fourth industrial revolution. Well, we know that fundamental rights have evolved over time, reflecting the struggles of different historical periods. Divided into generations, they range from civil and political rights in first generation to social and economic rights second generation, and after, and collective rights such as environmental protection and peace, consider third generation of rights, fundamental rights. Among these, the right to education, part of the second generation, plays a crucial role in promoting equality, especially in the context of the fourth industrial revolution. As Klaus Schwab said, driven by advanced technologies like artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, and the Internet of Things, this new era is transforming economies and labor markets worldwide. However, without adequate access to education, especially technological and digital training, many people risk being left behind. Digital exclusion has become a modern form of inequality. In this context, education is more than a basic right. It's a tool for social and economic inclusion. It equips individuals with the skills needed to participate in a fast-changing, technology-driven world. It also helps reduce inequality by providing opportunities for upward mobility and active citizenship. In Brazil, for example, the right to education is guaranteed by the 1988 Federal Constitution in the articles 205 and 214 is defined as a right of all and a duty of the state and families. Despite this legal framework, challenges remain in ensuring quality, access, and digital inclusion across the country, particularly in marginalized communities. Therefore, to fully embrace the opportunities of the fourth revolution, it's essential to invest in inclusive, future-oriented education. This means going beyond school access and ensuring real learning, digital literacy, and equity. Only then can education fulfill its role as a fundamental right and a path toward a more just and inclusive society in Brazil and beyond. I'd like to finish my first part in this speech saying a thought about the importance of education. If we can have states, strong states, we can have a strong education. If we can have states that don't have any strong police policy to transform their reality, their education must be just a detail. So we have to pay attention to this, to international community works together to change the situation and see how state can provide included context to empower the people and change the situation that can happen in these states. To finish, I'd like to pass the word to my co-speaker, Manuel Mário, to finish all the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is it Mr. Emmanuel is going to speak?
Yes, Manuel, please go on.
Good morning to you all. I'm just trying to unlock my webcam. I have a little technical issue.
Can you join? Can you disconnect and connect back?
Yes, okay, yes. I think I got it.
Right. You may proceed.
I'm just trying to. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can share.
Okay. Just trying to open my presentation. Sorry, technical issues at 2 a.m. 2 a.m. here in Brazil.
So
okay,
is
no,
there any technical issue you see in the bottom of the page? You can see the share button. Green. You see green button is there, share. In the bottom of the screen?
Okay, I'm just looking for, okay, found it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We don't make this. Okay, so you just share your screen. Okay, fine. You may proceed.
You can see the presentation now?
Yes, yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect. So, uh, first, I like to say that it's a true honor to speak at this conference, a theme that deeply resonates with my own life history. I was born and raised in one of the poorest states in Brazil that represents about 2% of national income. My parents came from humble beginnings, moving to the state's capital, seeking a better life as an embodying fragility. Uh, my mother, at over 40, balancing family and work, uh, resumed her studies. This act not only transformed our material conditions, but more importantly, had a profound subjective impact. Her example installed in me an understanding that education is an essential tool to mitigate inequalities and foster social, economic, and human development for individuals, families, and communities. Uh, in my own journey, drawing from nearly a decade in police investigation, my direct experience consistently showed that individuals engaged in unlawful activities predominantly originated from contexts of profound poverty. Um, and yesterday, observing the speech of Victoria Fontaine, in her presentation, she says that uh, that question about gender apartheid, and I reminded that the presence of this situation uh, restricting women access to education and autonomy is an almost unthinkable thing in nowadays. Um, it's very sad. It's very hard to see that we still have this kind of segregation. But in this context, digital transformation offers immense potential, but in fragile states, it comes with risks and exacerbating inequalities. We're talking about a silent and radical civilizational transition that is reshaping human interaction. Fragility for us goes far beyond armed conflict and encompasses chronic urban violence, profound social inequality, and widespread poverty. A striking example of this is Brazil, which illustrates its internal fragility dramatically. According to a Mexican NGO, uh, we have in Brazil 8 of the 50 most violent cities in the world. Furthermore, economic inequality is glaring. In a recent study realized by Ministry of Finance, uh, it's shown that 1% of the Brazilian population, the one richest percent, accounts for 27% of national income. And in this complex scenario, the digital sphere acts as an amplifier. It both amplifies risks, such as misinformation and exclusion, and opportunities for inclusion and development of these contexts. And solving this paradox is where the urgency lies. So, following the introduction by Dr. Daniel about fundamental rights, we can think in digital fundamental rights, because in this digital age, it's not just a point of technological shift, but a mutation of fundamental rights. It demands a new understanding and affirmation of essential rights to guarantee human dignity and full participation in this new interconnected environment. We are talking about 5 fundamental rights that are becoming a new imperative. The first one, the right to internet access. It's not just about having a connection, but it's about ensuring equitable and meaningful connectivity that allows everyone to participate. The second one, the right to data protection and privacy. In a world where our data is consistently collected, we need to safeguard personal information and have control over our digital footprint. The third one, the right to critical digital literacy. Fostering discernment is crucial for navigation in a sea of information, protecting ourselves from the misinformation and manipulation that proliferate in digital environment. Fourth, the right to participate in digital governance. Citizens must be empowered to actively participate in sharing and regulating the digital environment, becoming not just consumers, but co-creators. And finally, the right to ethical governance of artificial intelligence. As AI advances, it's imperative that we advocate for responsible development that avoids depending existing inequalities or creating new forms of exclusion. These rights are the pillars for guaranteeing the dignity and participation of all in cyberspace. It's important to emphasize that this is not an exhaustive list. The field of digital rights is constantly evolving, and new rights may emerge as technology advances and new needs arise. These are the ones we consider essential pillars in current context to guarantee the dignity and participation of everyone in the cyberspace. Well, having established that imperative of digital rights, the question that arises is, how can we ensure the effectiveness of these rights, especially in fragile contexts? The answers lies in education. Educational institutions at all levels are central actors in social development, and their role extends far beyond the mere transmission of knowledge. They are fundamental to fostering critical thinking, civic engagement, and cultivating values essential for peace and equity. This is why the integration of digital literacy and education on fundamental rights becomes so vital. This means equipping individuals with necessary skills to navigate the digital environment safely, critically, and with full awareness of their rights. Think of young people in vulnerable communities or women in contexts of gender apartheid, as discussed earlier. Digital education can be an unprecedented tool of empowerment to them. And more than that, education serves as a portal to the rediscovery or the initial discovery of fundamental rights in their full range. It is through education that vulnerable groups can reorganize and claim their dignity and the essential guarantees for a full life in all its dimensions, including in cyberspace. This transformative approach aligns with the integrative, inclusive idea with emphasizes governance and connected citizenship. It allows us to actualize what we call connected citizenship, empowering individuals not only to consume digital and content, but to actively shape the digital environment and defend their rights. Implementing digital education initiatives and fostering fundamental rights in fragile states is a complex task, with enormous challenges, but one that simultaneously opens doors to significant opportunities for innovation and collaboration. Among persistent challenges, we highlight infrastructure gaps, the widespread lack of robust and accessible digital connectivity exacerbates inequalities. For example, in regions like Sub-Saharan Africa and North regions in Brazil, data indicates that only 28% of population has internet access, compared to a global average of 53%. This severely restricts the dissemination of educational resources and participation online. Next, we have digital literacy deficiencies. Even where the infrastructure exists, the lack of digital skills among educators and students impedes the effective and critical use of technology. This demands a comprehensive training program that can go beyond technical operation to include critical thinking and digital ethics. We also observe fragile political and regulatory frameworks, the absence of or weakness of coherent legal guidelines compromise the protection of digital rights. For example, the 240 African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection has not yet been ratified by many member states, reflecting the difficulties of establishing regulatory standards. Finally, we have socio-economic barriers. Factors such as extreme poverty and gender disparities continues to be a major issue. The World Bank's project more than 400 million people will live on less than $3 a day in fragile states by 230, illustrating the severity of this challenge with a direct impact on access to education. However, amid these challenges, strategic opportunities emerge. Public-private partnerships are crucial for mobilizing resources and expertise. A notable example is the GIGA project, a collaboration between UNICEF and ITU, which aims to connect all schools globally to the internet by 230 to bridge the digital divide. The development of low-cost technologies and open educational sources offers scalable and adaptable solutions to diverse realities. And finally, concentrated global effort is essential to cultivate an enabling environment with inclusive policies and targeted investments. Through this presentation, we explored the complex landscape of digital transformation, examining its paradoxes and the urgent imperative for new fundamental rights. We saw how fragility in multiple facets, from poverty to urban violence, demands special attention. Our journey leads us to a clear conclusion. Digital transformation demands a rights-based and adaptive approach. We cannot allow technological advancement to exacerbate inequalities. Rather, we must use it as a tool for inclusion. In this scenario, the educational institutions emerge as indispensable catalysts for resilience and equity. They are the spaces where the skills and awareness necessary to navigate and shape this new world are forged. We can end saying that in this incumbent, it is an incumbent upon educational institutions, these sacred temples of knowledge, and their educators who serve as priests to defend and disseminate these principles. And it is for the students to embrace these ideals, becoming missionaries, multipliers, and disseminators of this vision. Together, we can ensure that digital future is one of dignity and peace. I thank you for the attention and pass the word back to Dr. Daniel.
So, thank you to both of you, and thank you for taking your time at this late night from Brazil. So we shall move to the next paper presenter. It is a speaker. It is my pleasure to invite Dr. Sanchita Tiwari to present on the theme from the lecture halls, to Policy Hall's governance reform. Dr. Tiwari, the floor is yours. You may proceed. Yes.
A very good morning to one and all. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Good morning to you.
Distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, honored guests, and friends, myself, Dr. Sanchita Tiwari. I'm an assistant professor at National Law University, Ranchi, from India. It is actually my privilege and a profound responsibility to speak before you today at this international conference on the topic From Lecture Halls to Policy Halls, Higher Education and the Architecture of Governance Reform. I extend my gratitude to the organizers for bringing us together to deliberate on a theme of such global urgency. We gather here at a time when our world faces intersecting crises, growing inequality, persistent poverty, climate shocks, rising authoritarianism, and violent conflicts that tear at the social fabric of fragile states. Against this backdrop, higher education stands as the beacon of hope. Universities are not just temples of learning, they are engines of knowledge, nurseries of leadership, and guardians of democratic and civil values. Today, I'll argue that higher education is not a peripheral player, but a central actor in shaping governance reforms, advancing policy innovation, addressing poverty, and mitigating conflict. I have framed around 3 dimensions. The first one being higher education as the generator of evidence-based knowledge. Second being higher education as the builder of human capital for policy leadership. And the third being the institutional space for civic engagement and democratic debate. Also, I have shared examples from across the world, from South Africa to Colombia, from India to Rwanda, and Tunisia to Syria, that illustrate how universities can help societies navigate fragility, conflict, and transformation. Let us begin by reflecting on the first role, that is universities as engines of knowledge. When we are talking about the policy reforms in the fragile context, it cannot be built on guesswork, ideology, or political expediency alone. What they require is the robust evidence, data, and analysis. Now, universities, through the research centers, think tanks, and collaborations with government agencies, generate the knowledge base that underpins reforms. For example, South Africa, after the end of apartheid in 1994, universities such as the University of Cape Town played a very critical role in shaping policies of democratic transition. They produced research on land reform, housing, public health, and constitutional design. Now, this knowledge, when we are talking about, was not confined to academic journals. It directly informed government white papers and legislations. If we take the example of Colombia, during the peace process with the FARC University Los Andes, it became a hub of conflict research and policy recommendations. The faculty there provided technical expertise in designing reintegration programs for the ex-combatants and also the mechanisms for truth and reconciliation. This is one of the striking examples of how higher education can serve as the bridge between the armed conflict and the fragile peace. very close to my own region, India's higher education, when we are talking about, it has contributed significantly to policy debates on climate governance. For example, the Indian Institute of Technology and the Indian Institute of Management, they have partnered with the government on renewable energy transitions. While the Energy and Resource Institute, most of us have heard this, TERI, has produced influential reports on sustainable development. These inputs have shaped India's National Action Plan on climate change and its negotiating positions at international climate summits. These examples demonstrate how higher education institutions are not ivory towers. When they are empowered, when they are connected, they are laboratories of reform, offering solutions that are very context sensitive, and but then they are very globally very relevant. Coming to the next part, that is higher education and the human capital for policy leadership. When we are talking about, it is actually cultivating human capital. Universities do not just produce knowledge, they shape the leaders, administrators, and professionals who translate that knowledge into policy. For example, in Rwanda, the African Leadership University, ALU, that represents a very bold experiment in higher education. As far as established in the year 2015, ALU seeks to address the leadership deficit in Africa by focusing not only on the technical skills, but also on the ethical part of it. That is what we call as ethical reasoning, entrepreneur thinking, and a very strong sense of social responsibility. Rwanda itself, as we know, that it has emerged from the genocide of 1994, it illustrates how investment in education can underpin stability and growth. Universities, they are now producing a generation of leaders committed to rebuilding institutions, fostering reconciliation, and driving a very inclusive development. That is what we can say. Contrast to this, when we're talking about the fragile states where universities have collapsed or has been marginalized, in Afghanistan, decades of war have undermined the higher education. But yet, even then, universities like Kabul universities have been a source of resilience. Many of its graduates, despite facing exile and threats, have contributed to the governance sectors, offering a glimpse of the potential that exists under dire conditions. Also, global institutions, for example, we take the London School of Economics. They have long been recognized for shaping the policy elites. But again, in fragile contexts, when we are talking about, the need is not only for the elite policymakers, but also for the leaders rooted in the local realities. When we're talking about the universities in Africa, Asia, Latin America, they are therefore experimenting with the curricula that emphasize community-based learning, participatory governance, and grassroots leaderships. Coming to the third part, that is higher education as a space for civic engagement and debate. When we are talking about universities, when we look down the history, it has actually shown that when the societies are undergoing upheaval, or universities often become crucibles of change. They are sites where contested ideas, when they are debated, where civil society finds voice, and where future generations are actually learning the habits of democracy. Universities in Tunisia, when we are talking about, they have actually become the key arenas for political debates. Students and academics, they have mobilized to demand transparency, accountability, and reforms. Although the outcomes across the regions have varied, down the lane. But in Tunisia, the role of universities in nurturing democratic discourse was unmistakable. Even when we take the example of Chile, in Chile, student-led movements in the 2000s and 2010, they demanded education reform, arguing that unequal access to higher education, which actually perpetuated poverty and social exclusion. So this activism of the students, they not only reshaped education policy, but also fed into broader debates about inequality and governance. Coming again to India, the very own region, universities have historically been spaces of political ferment, from the freedom movement to contemporary debates on social justice. Institutions such as Jawaharlal Nehru University, that is JNU, have hosted debates that link grassroots social movements to political discourses. When we are talking about this civic function, it is particularly critical in fragile states where other institutions of debate, such as parliaments, or even when we are talking about the media, it may be weak, but these universities can actually act as watchdogs, critiquing state policies and offering alternative visions also. When we are talking specifically about higher education in fragile states and the conflict zones, we can take the example of how these fragile states often face the twin challenge of weak governance and the educational infrastructure also. So, for example, the case of Syria, the civil war actually have devastated the country's universities, yet initiatives such as the Council for At-Risk Academics and Scholars at Risk, they have created pathworks for Syrian scholars to continue teaching and researching abroad. So these universities in exile in Syria, they have not only preserved the academic communities, but also they have maintained the possibility of post-conflict reconstruction. Taking a very landmark example of Iraq, uh, that is after the defeat of ISIS, the University of Mosul, that also became a symbol of resilience, and much of its campus had been destroyed. Yet students returned to classes amidst all these ruins, and they have rebuilt the university, and it became actually intertwined with rebuilding the city itself. So it is not only about education merely producing knowledge, but about it is also about restoring the dignity and hope. So we need to talk about globalizations and partnership when we are talking about the higher education becoming the catalysts from lecture halls to policy making. When we're talking about this interconnected world, no university we can say is an island. So globalization has expanded the role of higher education in governance reform through partnerships, networks, and cross-border research. International organizations such as UNESCO, or for that matter, OECD, the World Bank, they have supported higher education reforms in developing the fragile states. The World Bank's funding of African higher education consortia, that is an example of a very strengthened regional capacity in science, technology, and the public policy. Also, in the sub-Saharan Africa, if we take the examples of the initiatives taken by the African research universities, they foster collaborations across borders, pooling resources to tackle common challenges such as poverty, health, and climate change. So, immersion networks, for example, the BRICS universities, that those have also facilitated the sharing of policy models in areas which are ranging from the sustainable development to digital governance. Now, these partnerships, these networkings, these collaborations are allowing the universities in the global south to learn from each other. They're reducing dependence on the Western countries, Western models, and building a more context relevant societies. When we are talking about the digital platforms, these actually further expand its reach. The rise of online education, virtual exchanges, accelerated actually by the COVID-19 pandemic, have allowed the students in fragile states to access resources and expertise from across the globe. Institutions like the University of the People and online university, it also demonstrates how technology can democratize access to higher education in contexts where brick and mortar campuses are not feasible. Uh, Let me conclude by reaffirming that higher education institutions are not passive observers of history. They are the architects of governance reform, poverty reduction, and peace building process. When we take the examples from India, several examples, the recent example of National Education Policy of 2020, that is a major governance reform in India's education sector, where we can reimagine the higher education structure, curricular flexibility, multidisciplinary learning, also the institutional autonomy, research, and innovation. So these universities, scholars, they have contributed inputs during the consultations. Several think tanks, academic groups, higher education leaders, they have helped reform what became actually the provisions of NEP today. We can also take, I have taken the example of IIT Kanpur. So that again, the consulting group has worked on leveraging the machine learning and strategic consulting to address the social problems such as the COVID-19 response, public health, environmental monitoring. Also, when we are talking about the open access research outputs from the state agricultural universities, that is also serving a very big, huge example for the policy implications that have taken place in the agricultural planning. So this has implications for how the state governments, agricultural extensions, policymakers, they have used the devising crop diversification schemes, water management plans for better outputs. There are several other examples of Punjab University, governance and management reform research by RUSA, NIRF, policy reforms show these actually show the impact of the policy frameworks on institutional governance, how the response is there in changing the entire management structures, improving accountability, enhancing access in the rural areas. Also, the comparative study that has been made that has been there with respect to India and China, that also discusses how policy direction, regulatory frameworks, funding, university autonomy have been used in India to promote the innovation in the higher education institutions. It highlights both successes and challenges in India's efforts to use universities as engines of innovation and reform. Through this knowledge generation, they actually provide the evidence base for the policy making. Through human capital development, they shape the leaders who will carry the reforms forward. When we're talking about the third part, that is the civic engagement, they nurture democratic culture and accountability. Even in the ruins of war, universities serve as symbols of resilience, carrying the very promise of renewal. But for all these universities to fulfill the transformative role, what is required is the support. The government must strengthen the policy which actually interface with the universities, ensuring that research informs decision making. Academic freedom must be safeguarded because without it, universities actually lose their soul. Investments in research infrastructure, digital platforms, and international partnerships are essential to bridge the gap between ideas and actions. Most importantly, when we are talking about the universities, these actually must embrace inclusivity and actually sustainability. They must not only prepare leaders, but also the empowerment should be given to the marginalized communities, women, and youth. They must link education to a very bigger platform, that is the broader struggle for social justice. As we look into the future, let us reimagine the partnership between academia and governance, not as one of dependency, but of co-creation. The crisis of 21st century, climate change, pandemic, inequality, and conflict demand nothing less. Let me leave this conference with a very shared conviction. The higher education is not just a luxury for fragile states, but a very big necessity, a very huge necessity. It is actually a catalyst for addressing poverty, for mitigating conflict, and for building the resilient, inclusive, and democratic societies that our world so urgently requires. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. May I invite now Dr. Pooja Jabu to...
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Is my screen visible? I would like to share the screen
Yes,
as well.
yes.
Okay. So, very good afternoon to one and all present here, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, and fellow champions of peace. It gives me great it's an honor for me. It gives me privilege for sharing my thoughts today and before you with the profound belief that within every conflict zone lies untapped potential, and within every educational institution lies the power of it to unlock it. So yes, my topic for today is from classroom to community, how educational institutes can transform conflict zones into zones of opportunity, a strategic framework for peace, prosperity, and sustainable development. Let me begin with sobering numbers. Let me begin with sobering numbers that demand for our immediate attention. Right now, as we speak, 1.6 billion people, nearly one-fifth of humanity, live in fragile and conflict-affected states. Among them, 75 million children are denied the basic right to education, while poverty rates soar 50% higher than in stable regions. But these are not just statistics. They represent dreams, deferred, potential unrealized, and cycles of violence perpetuated. Traditional education approaches have failed these communities. We need transformative solutions that don't just treat symptoms, but address the root causes of conflict while building sustainable peace. Yeah. So the transformation opportunity. Here's what I've learned from studying successful interventions worldwide. Educational institutions can be far more than places of learning. They can become neutral spaces where former enemies sit side by side, building understanding and through purpose. Economic catalysts, educational institutions can also serve as economic catalysts that transform unemployed youth from potential recruits for violence into skilled entrepreneurs and change makers. Educational institutions can also be peace builders that promote social cohesion and civic engagement, healing communities one classroom at a time. They can be community hubs as well that extend far beyond traditional education to become centers of comprehensive development. So, moving communities from passive recipient of aid to active agents of their own transformation. So, yes, here are some of the global stories. Let me share some remarkable examples that prove this approach works. In Rwanda, post-genocide recovery programs achieved an extraordinary 85% reduction in recidivism by integrating former combatants into technical and vocational education training programs. Former enemies became colleagues, rebuilding not just infrastructure, but trust itself. Colombia transformed post-FARC conflict zones into thriving ecotourism hubs through peace-focused curriculum that turned former grounds into destinations of hope. In Afghanistan's Bamyan province, vocational training programs achieved a 60% reduction in Taliban recruitment by providing young people with economic alternatives to violence. And in Northern Ireland, shared educational spaces didn't just heal sectarian divisions, they improved learning outcomes for everyone involved. Now, moving on to the Indian context, India's own transformation stories offer powerful lessons. Mizoram evolved from an insurgency hotspot to India's most literate state through strategic educational investment, including the establishment of the National Institute of Technology. Across the Northeast, the integration of local languages with skill development programs has peacefully transformed former conflict zones. In Jammu Kashmir, digital literacy initiatives and technical education are providing young people with alternative to radicalization. The Aspirational Districts program demonstrates how educational institutions can serve as development anchors, bringing hope to places like Kupwara and Dantewar that were once synonymous with conflicts. Now, let me give you the 4 pillars of transformation. Based on these success stories, I propose a strategic framework built on 4 foundational pillars. First, curriculum reform. Curriculum reform that integrates peace education, conflict sensitivity, and civic engagement into every subject, making every lesson a lesson in building better communities. Secondly, skill-based learning that provides concrete economic alternatives through vocational training and entrepreneurship programs, giving young people viable paths to prosperity. Third, digital integration that leverages technology to overcome traditional barriers, ensuring access to quality education regardless of geographical or political constraints. Fourth, community engagement that transforms schools into community centers, dialogue spaces, and service hubs that serve entire populations, not just students. Now we'll look at technology as a game changer. Digital learning is revolutionizing education in conflict zones. Kenya's M-Shul platform provides mobile learning during conflict disruptions. Blockchain credentials offer portable, verified qualifications that cross borders seamlessly. India's Diksha platform uses satellite technology to reach the most remote conflict zones. Perhaps most remarkably, underground networks are maintaining educational continuity even under severe restrictions, proving that the desire to learn transcends physical barriers and political instability. Now, we must also revolutionize for sustainable impact. How we fund these transformations. Lebanon's refugee integration bonds are mobilizing private capital for public education. Sierra Leone's result-based financing ensures accountability in post-conflict settings. Public-private partnerships create sustainable funding streams, while community investment ensures local ownership and program relevance. Achieving multiple sustainability development goals. This approach doesn't just address education, it accelerates progress across multiple sustainability development goals. So first, sustainable development goal, which caters to no poverty. Skills training leads to employment and economic empowerment. Sustainability development goal 2, that is 4, quality education. Its inclusive access with relevant curriculum enables lifelong learning. Then SDG 8, decent work. Skill development drives entrepreneurship and economic growth. SDG 16, which talks about peace and justice. Dialogue spaces foster conflict resolution and social cohesion. Now, the evidence is clear. Educational institutions can be catalysts for transformation, converting destructive conflict energy into constructive development force. They can build bridges between communities, opportunities, and peace while creating sustainable pathways from violence to prosperity. We have the tools, the models, and the proof of concept. That we need now is the collective one will act. So I challenge each of you to return to your countries, your organizations, your communities with the conviction education is indeed the ultimate weapon against poverty and conflict. Let us commit to making every school a peace center and every student an agent of change. Let us transform classrooms into launching pads for community transformation. The children in conflict zones don't just need our sympathy, they need our strategy. They don't just need our aid, they need our belief in their potential to be the architects of their own peace future. Together, we can turn the world's most challenging places into the greatest success stories. The transformation begins in the classroom, but its impact will reshape entire communities, nations, and ultimately our world. Thank you for attention, and more importantly, thank you for your commitment to turning this vision into reality. The future of peace lies not in the hands of politicians or generals, but in the minds we educate and the hearts we inspire today. With this, I conclude my speech for today. Any questions?
Is there any questions? Do you have any question to Dr. Pujama? No, there is no such question. Okay, thank you so much. Yes?
There are questions on the chat. Questions on the chat.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I am Mr. Luke from the DRC, and I would like to know whether Madam Paja will share this PP for the next step. I would like to know if she's able to share this.
Sorry, I couldn't.
Share.
It's about hearing the presentation, Madam.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Abinika to share her perspective on the topic. Dr.
Good afternoon,
Abinika,
everyone.
are you there? Yes.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been pleasure hearing everyone. I hope I'm audible, and I'll just start sharing my screen.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yes, I hope the screen is visible.
The screen is visible. You need to open your PPT.
Okay. So again, very good afternoon to everyone. It was a pleasure
PPT is
really
not
hearing
visible.
everyone. PPT is?
Not visible.
Oh, not visible. Okay. Thank you for pointing out. Is it now?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Just a second. Okay. So my topic for the day is right to inclusion, educational access for persons with disabilities in conflict affected states. So before I begin the presentation, again from the chats, if we can answer, I just want to know uh, a very quick question. When the word conflict affected state comes, so what's the first image which comes to your mind? If I can get few answers from the chats. The word which image, what's the image which comes to your mind when you hear the word conflict affected states? Fragile areas, conflict. If you can have some answers. Gaza, okay. Underdeveloped nations. Image of underdeveloped nation. What specifically the image which comes to my mind are usually soldiers or maybe someone limping. This is the image comes, and rarely there's an image of a person who has some kind of disability, maybe post-conflict disability, yes, but hardly we see about a person who has disability since birth. So this is what is the focus of my presentation today. We'll be focusing on these children or these persons who have some kind of impairment, and what is war from their perspectives, what are the struggles they face. This would be the topic for my forthcoming slides, my presentation. Before that, again, a quick request. I want to discuss the term persons with disabilities. You see, generally we use the terms like disabled person, handicapped, then mentally retarded, deaf and dumb, mute, mentally challenged. All these terms are in use, in vogue, used today, and unknowingly we use these terms. But these are very, we have to be very sensitive about these terms because they are not acceptable. They are very have negative connotation. According to United Nations Convention on Rights of the Persons with Disabilities, a person with disability is someone who has a long-term impairment. This impairment might be physical, mental, sensory, or intellectual. And this impairment, when it comes with environment, when environment is inaccessible and that person is unable to enjoy his or her rights effectively, then that impairment becomes disability. So like gender and race, even disability is a social concept. It's not a biological concept. So I hope next time uh, everyone here listening would be more sensitive to these terms. A person is impaired, and impairment is temporary. With help of technological device, a person may or may not want to use the term impairment. So next, I hope everyone would be more sensitive next time. Person is not blind or handicapped, but that person has impairment. So now I'll start my presentation. Just a second, I'm not able. Yeah. So since morning, we're discussing about an important role of education and how education is is a social mobility factor and how it improves the chances of everyone. Then why should we focus on disability? I mean, there needs to be a political will. There are so many economic challenges, and we have been listening since even yesterday we were listening how much struggle people, children and people in the fragile states have to go through every day. And here comes and here I'm talking about from the perspective of disability. So the thing is, persons with disability, they are the largest minority in the world. 15% of our population, that is one out of every 6% has some kind of disability according to World Health Organization. And the conflicts, they increase their vulnerability. Just for an example, if at all in a refugee camp, there is an announcement that food has been distributed. So just imagine everyone would come and they can have the food, but then a person who is has hearing impairment, by the time he or she realizes that food has been distributed, food would be gone. So already there are so many struggles, there are so many layers of suffering, and then disability adds to that one more layer. That's why I feel that disability has to be discussed, and they're the ones who need the aid first of all, and they're the ones who receive the last. And structural, I'll be discussing, there are many examples, as we are seeing from the previous and even today, that many nations, they are trying, but then more needs to be done. Excuse me. Then sustainable development goals, about it's not just about sustainable development goals, but even United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, then the International Covenant.
You need to change your slide. You need to change your slide. Your slides are not changing.
Slides are not changing. Okay.
Yes. So you are in the first slide, right?
No, I've already. I'm on third slide. Just a thank you for informing.
Yes. You need to
I'll do that again. Is the slide visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. This was the previous slide. Why should we focus on disability? And this is the slide I'm currently speaking on. The Sustainable Development Goal, promise versus reality. So as I was speaking, the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, then International Covenant on Civil, Political, and Cultural Rights, then International Covenant on Economic, Social Rights. We have so many international conventions and covenants. They speak about that everyone should have a human right of dignity, and they have right to education. They have right to they have all fundamental rights. But then that's just still it's just a promise, and there's a long path, and the reality right now is that children with disability, and as I was hearing from other speakers as well, that around 90% of the children are out of school in the conflicted areas. So we need to focus on this. The roots are I'll be discussing in the coming slides, that we need to take care of about children with disability as well, because if the things go by the rate they are going now, 80% of the PWDs in conflict zones may still be excluded. According to the UNICEF report, according to United Nations Convention, almost every state, that's not the states which are in the conflicted zone, but then almost all states which are signatories, they have to keep record of the students which are enrolled in normal schools, not just not just as part of inclusive education, but also in separate schools. But then very few countries, I guess only 5% of the countries are maintaining that data. So if the so-called developed world, as I'd seen in the comment section, for conflicted areas, we imagine the underdeveloped countries. But then even the developed countries, only 5% of them are maintaining the data. So just imagine the condition of children who are in the conflicted zones. Then hearing impairment, which I've done my doctoral thesis on hearing impairment, specifically students with hearing impairment. They suffer more than others. That's what I believe, because their disability is quite invisible. See, if at all I say disability, so the first image comes usually in person's mind is either someone in a wheelchair or with a white cane. But so you are sympathetic to them. But what about a person who is just standing there? The person is not understanding, and you might feel that person is arrogant and not talking to you. But then the person is not even able to hear. And as I was hearing in the previous speeches, you see already the in conflicted zones the staff is no, they're understaffed. They have lack of resources, and in that place, if at all the schools are there, so school for them is a cheerful place. You know, post traumatic the trauma of war is gone, and at least they feel safe in that place. And there you feel all your friends are understanding something, and you are just trying to understand what the person is teaching, and you don't understand a bit. So again, you feel more isolated, although that layer is there of trauma from the past, and then another layer that your friends are understanding something and you cannot. So that's a very sorry state. So we need more sign language interpreters and visual alerts. The first speech was about digital education, and in the coming slides we have heard about digital education. So maybe that can really help the students with hearing impairment. And this image is really into my mind. There was a small girl, and I have not used images here because it was disturbing for me. So I could that's why I've not used them. But then this story of this girl, 12-year-old girl, she said that I do not understand what my teachers were saying, because half of the time I used to lip read. So instead of focusing on what the concept they are teaching me, I used to just lip read, and I could not understand anything. So these are the issues which students face, and we really have to do our best to solve and take care of their things. Then global examples are many. Then Ukraine, South Sudan. I am not focusing much on this, because since morning we are listening so many examples, and you've already heard about the importance of education. So I don't want to reiterate, because everyone here knows the importance of education. Education is not just a social mobility thing. For me, education means everything. Without education, you cannot able to express yourself. Without education, you have no representation. I mean, if you cannot tell someone what you want, so how will you be able to actually understand what you want? So education, yes, it's just not learning. It is participation, protection, and empowerment. So if you are able to participate in policy making, you are able to express your grievances, you are able to make others understand what you feel. As I'm like here, what I'm trying to say, I guess before this you must have never even visualized how a person with disability would feel about wars, because most of the humanitarian aids are focused to supposedly normal beings. Of course they would be, because although something is scarce already, and then you're making another claim that more scarce a person should have it. So things are quite difficult there. But nonetheless, every human has a right, and every human being has a right to dignity. So even and as we say, no one should be left behind. So persons with disability, and especially persons with hearing impairment, also should have the right which we all are speaking about. As I've been speaking, the policy and practice gaps, less than 2%, as I was speaking, less than 2% of the humanitarian aid targets disability inclusion. Most of the aids are for normal people. In the previous slides, there was an example there. The siren safety evacuation plans, when they are done, the drills they are done. So sirens have been played, and persons with hearing impairment, they cannot hear it. Even a hearing impairment, it's a umbrella term. There are people who are deaf, and there are people who are hard of hearing. So deaf, they cannot even hear a word, so they prefer sign language, and they consider themselves as a cultural group. And hard of hearing, with some aids, they can hear something. They can hear a bit, around 40% of the voice they can hear. But then the ones who are totally deaf, they cannot even with the hearing aids and technology, they cannot hear even a word. Then PWDs are rarely consulted in program planning, again because they don't have proper education, they cannot express themselves. So how can they be a part of been part of decision making? So again, as they say, no representation if they are not participating. So we need inclusive, and inclusion should be in true sense, just not about you know uh, caste, creed, or gender, but then inclusion in true sense. I mean, like as there was a discussion on Afghan women, the things they suffer the most, and like yesterday also a gender apartheid term was used. So just imagine, because of your gender, you're already facing some discrimination, and top of that, if you are having some kind of impairment also, so the intersectional discrimination which you have been faced, that is so wrong, I guess. And they feel that in one of the papers which I did earlier, it was about the marriage of women with hearing impairment, and that they are in a very sorry state. And I feel as a society, of course, policy making at political level, government has to do many things. But as I was discussing in the first slide, we as an audience, we as a society, if we take steps, if we are socially aware, so things can change. If we do something in the groundwork, grassroots level, certainly there would be effect, multiplier effect, and maybe not top bottom, but bottom to top, things can be changed. So I guess it starts with us, and PWDs must be central in policy making, because nothing about them if they are not part of it. And I guess I've been hearing from yesterday, there was so much about gender, and then one side about belonging, bullying and belonging. So that girl with the story which was said earlier, that the girl was made fun of, she was not feeling belong. Just imagine a person who seems physically different from you, how would that person feel? So we really need to make them, rather from marginalization, we need to bring disability issues also in the mainstream. And yes, I guess that's the last slide for me, that people, they need survival, they should be part of the mainstream politics, they should be part of our mainstream conversation. Accessibility should be there in almost all humanitarian response. It should not be an option. See, for us, this communication might be option. We can chat, we can type, but then someone who cannot has no idea about ABCD, for that person, communication is survival, not just a part optional thing. So we need to keep that in focus, and sign language should be accessible, and it is not difficult, that difficult. I mean, I have a 4-year-old son, and I was lucky enough, we both converse in sign language, so it's not that difficult that you have to learn another language. But if you pay attention, somehow, even here in this conference, people from so many languages are here, but then there are some certain signs. I mean, languages are different, but signs are so simple. Like if I have to say eyes or hair, something, I can point it out. Good morning, like all the best. These are so normal signs. So it is easy. It's just we need to change our perspective. And inclusion is not that very difficult. Everything can be done once we imagine that things can be done. Inclusion is not charity in conflict, it's justice. I'll just end my presentation with this last words, that
we are going to formally conclude the 2 days conference. Of course, we have learned and explored the role of education as a transformative force for peace building, poverty alleviation, and empowerment. I hope that this discussion not only enrich our scholarship, but also guide us towards actionable change in the communities, those who are in most need. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Sarah Benjamin to extend the word of thanks. And Ms. Sarah.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. As we draw the curtains on this enriching two-day international conference on the role of educational institutions as catalysts addressing poverty and mitigating conflict in fragile states, it is my honor and privilege to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee. At the outset, we express our deepest gratitude to our chief patrons, Professor Dr. Loknath N.K., Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Mysore, Professor Stephen Kiyama, Vice Chancellor, University of Nairobi, Kenya, and Ms. Norma Cordero Romero, General Director, Calo Institute, Madrid, Spain, whose vision and leadership inspired and guided this conference. We are equally thankful to our patrons, Srimati M.K. Savita, Registrar, University of Mysore, Dr. Veeni Kamal, Dean, School of Law, University of Nairobi, and Dr. Hezekiel Oira, Dean, School of Law, Mount Kenya University, Kenya, for their constant encouragement and support. Day 1 began with the inaugural session graced by Professor Dr. S. Surya Prakash, Vice Chancellor of the National Law Institute, University Bhopal, as the chief guest, and Professor Dr. C. Baswaraju, Vice Chancellor of the Karnataka State Law University, as the guest of honor. Their thought-provoking inaugural addresses laid a strong foundation for the conference. We are equally grateful to Professor Dr. Srinivasalu N.S. of the National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata, for delivering the keynote address, and Mr. Alberto Martos, President, and Mrs. Norma Cordero Romero, General Director, Calo Institute, Madrid, for the inspiring words on the mission of Calo Institute. A special thanks goes to Dr. Kenneth Wayne Mutuma, Professor of Law, Mount Kenya University, who, as a conference chair, stated the vision and ensured the academic depth of the deliberations. We also acknowledge Mr. Syed Kudrat Hashmi, convener, for his tireless efforts in coordinating this global gathering. Over the course of 2 days, we are privileged to hear from distinguished international speakers, including Mr. Inigo Torres, Ms. Anna Argoiti, Professor Victoria Fontan, and Mr. Rudy Martinez on day 1, and several eminent voices who continue to enlighten us through day 2. Their diverse insights on vocational training, frontline capacity building, resilience in higher education, sustainability, and beyond greatly enriched our understanding. We owe a special vote of thanks to the paper presenters, whose scholarly contributions and research papers added academic rigor and brought fresh perspectives to the dialogue. We extend heartfelt appreciation to all our participants, scholars, researchers, practitioners, and students for your enthusiastic engagement, questions, and reflections, which made the deliberations interactive and meaningful. Finally, we acknowledge the organizing committee, technical team, and support staff who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this conference a smooth and successful reality. With this, we conclude what has been a deeply inspiring journey of collaboration and learning. Let us carry forward these discussions and partnerships to strengthen the role of education as a transformative force in building peace, elevating poverty, and fostering resilience in fragile states. Thank you all once again.